You suggest a small, sensible change at a meeting, maybe a tiny adjustment to the office dress code or a new rule for parking. Within seconds, someone tells you how this simple tweak will trigger a sequence of disasters, ending in total anarchy. It's a paralyzing feeling. Their prediction has so much momentum that it's difficult to pivot. You know the argument is ridiculous, but in the heat of the moment, you can't figure out how to safely stop it. That feeling of being trapped by hypothetical momentum has a name. It's a logical trap known as the domino fallacy. This happens when an arguer assumes, without providing appropriate evidence, that a particular action is just the first step in a guaranteed, unstoppable chain reaction, leading to an undesirable consequence. Surrendering to this logic freezes progress. However, understanding the mechanical flaw beneath the fear-mongering is the key to disarming the claim. Good arguments are governed by strict structural rules. The domino fallacy violates one of the most important, the sufficiency criterion. The sufficiency criterion states that the reasons you give in an argument must be strong enough, on their own, to drive a reasonable person to your conclusion. The domino fallacy breaks this rule by assuming that causality in the real world behaves exactly like a perfectly spaced row of falling dominoes. But real-world events are complex, messy, and rarely possess that kind of frictionless automatic capability. The human brain is great at imagining a sequence of disastrous events, but vividly picturing a catastrophe does not qualify as sufficient evidence that the first step guarantees the last. Let's pull this out of the abstract and look at how this flawed reasoning shows up in everyday debates, starting right now with the institution of marriage. You might hear an argument that allowing gay and lesbian marriages will inevitably lead to legalized group marriages, which will then cause society to completely abandon the marriage practice altogether. Look closely at the jump between the first step and the second. The arguer provides no causal evidence to link them. Or look at gun control. A critic might argue that if the government limits monthly firearm purchases, they will eventually ration liquor, food, cars, and eventually dictate family size. We see it in smaller environments too. A professor might worry that letting students serve on a minor committee means those students will soon demand a seat on the board of trustees, and shortly after that, they'll be hiring and firing the faculty. In every one of these cases, the arguers skipped the work of providing independent causal proof for each individual jump. They rely entirely on the momentum of the disaster they've described. The entire argument runs on the illusion of speed. The moment you pause the conversation and ask for actual evidence connecting the steps, the chain reaction collapses. Shutting down a domino fallacy in real time requires a specific shift in how you engage with your opponent. Productive disagreement relies on a shared code of intellectual conduct. When you're at the receiving end of one of these arguments, do not waste your breath arguing against the final apocalyptic conclusion. Instead, focus on the links. Insist that the arguer provide an independent, separate causal explanation for every single jump in their sequence. Forcing an opponent to pause and account for each step makes it difficult for them to rely on momentum alone, shifting the burden of proof back to the actual links in their chain. If the arguer refuses to provide step-by-step evidence, you can employ the absurd counterexample method. You simply mirror their logic. Suggest that getting a new credit card will cause you to buy too much. You won't be able to pay your bills. The bank will repossess your car. You'll lose your job, and your life will be totally ruined. Any observer can see that this credit card sequence clearly requires separate, distinct evidence for every jump in logic. By demonstrating that absurdity, you highlight that their catastrophic sequence requires it too. By steadfastly demanding independent proof for every single step, you force the conversation